It was a cold morning in Paris, 1792. The crowds were already gathering in the Place de Grève, drawn like moths to a flame. A wooden platform stood in the center, freshly assembled. Atop it loomed a curious device, tall, imposing, mechanical. For the first time, the people of France would witness the birth of an execution revolution. But far from the cheers and clamor of the mob, one man sat alone in his study, haunted. His name was Dr. Joseph Ignace Guillotine, and though the machine bore his name, he had never built it, nor did he ever want it to become the symbol of terror it would one day be. This is the story of a man whose name became synonymous with death, against his will. Chapter 1. The Enlightened Physician. Born on May 28, 1738 in Saintes, a quiet town in western France, Joseph Ignace Guillotine was no executioner. He was a doctor, a scholar of the Enlightenment, and a man of reason. He studied medicine in Bordeaux and Paris, later traveling to Ireland to learn from the most advanced physicians of the time. Guillotine wasn't obsessed with death. He was obsessed with fairness. As the French Revolution loomed, the divide between the nobility and commoners was vast. One of its starkest examples was how people were executed. The aristocrats were given a swift and relatively painless death, usually by sword or axe. But the peasants? They were hanged, or worse, broken on the wheel, tortured, disemboweled. It was not just brutal, it was inhumane. So in 1789, standing before the National Assembly, Guillotine made a bold and controversial proposal. A device, one that could kill instantly without pain. And more importantly, treat all citizens equally in death. He believed such a device would humanize capital punishment, and perhaps even discourage its use. Chapter 2. The machine becomes real. Guillotine didn't invent the machine himself. In fact, he was only the messenger. But his suggestion set the wheels in motion. The assembly approved his idea, and soon the task fell to another man, Dr. Antoine Louis, the head surgeon of the king's court. He, alongside a German engineer named Tobias Schmidt, built the first working prototype, a heavy angle blade suspended between two tall wooden columns, a mechanism to hold the head perfectly in place, a release latch, and gravity. When it dropped, the blade would sever the head in milliseconds. They called it the Louisette at first, but the public quickly gave it another name, La Guillotine, after the man who had first proposed it, even though he had nothing to do with its construction. The irony was suffocating. Guillotine, a physician who had spent his life trying to save lives, now had his name permanently attached to an engine of death. Chapter 3. A nation's favorite killer. The guillotine was first used on April 25, 1792. The victim? A highwayman named Nicolas Jacques Pelletier. The crowd came expecting blood. What they got was efficiency, clean, swift, disappointingly clinical. But it didn't take long for the machine to find its rhythm. As the French Revolution descended into chaos, the guillotine became the centerpiece of the Reign of Terror. From 1793 to 1794, more than 17,000 people were officially executed. Some historians estimate the number may have been much higher. King Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette, Georges Danton, Maximilien Robespierre, the very man who had once wielded the guillotine as a tool of justice, was himself guillotined in the end. The blade showed no loyalty. It obeyed only gravity. Executions were held publicly, often several per day. Vendors sold snacks. Children watched from rooftops. The crowd cheered when the head fell, then gasped in awe at how fast it was over. The guillotine had become the national spectacle, both feared and revered, and all the while, Joseph Ignace Guillotine watched in horror. Chapter 4. The name that haunted him. Guillotine had never meant for this. He imagined a more humane future, a machine used rarely, in only the gravest of cases. Instead, it had become the flagship of a bloodthirsty revolution. He pleaded with the government to remove his name from the machine, but it was too late. The public had already cemented the association. He begged them to rename it. They refused. Rumors swirled that he had been executed by his own invention, but in reality, Guillotine lived on, haunted, bitter, and disillusioned. He resumed his work in medicine, helping to eradicate smallpox and advance public health systems. But the shadow of the blade followed him. He died on March 26, 1814, at the age of 75, not by execution but from natural causes. Still, his tomb bore a name that would live forever. Chapter 5. The Legacy of the Guillotine. The guillotine remained France's method of execution for nearly 2 centuries. In fact, the last execution by guillotine took place in 1977, less than 50 years ago. It wasn't officially outlawed until 1981, when France abolished the death penalty entirely. To this day, the word guillotine invokes imagery of revolution, blood, injustice twisted into spectacle. It became a character in the history of France, cold, efficient, inevitable. But behind that steel blade was always a man, Dr. Guillotine, who never wanted this legacy. He dreamed of fairness, equality, mercy, but history does not always listen to the dreams of men. Final reflection. What makes a legacy? Is it the ideas we propose or the way others use them? Joseph Ignace Guillotin believed in progress, in reason, in compassion. He lived and died as a man of science, but his name became a symbol of death. And perhaps that's the cruelest cut of all.